Okay, today I want to tie a stonefly nymph. Now the stonefly, it's quite a big fly. We often call it the hard wing fly, but that's a mature insect. I'm going to tie the nymph today. UK wise, it's local in distribution. Stonefly, as its name implies, it's in fast, rocky, quite shallow rivers on times. We used to call this nymph the creeper as we were kids, and creeper fishing was something we used to get involved in, where we would turn up the stones on the side of the shallow brook and catch the creepers, impale them on a hook, and they were quite deadly, even in the old industrial dirty rivers. The adult fly has various names. As I said, we called it hard-wing fly, but it's called the February red, yellow Sally, or even the willow fly. Now I want to point out on here, can you see the little eyes on it? I just wonder if you can. I hope to show you, if I get time, how I make those little eyes. And you can see the tail, which are biots. Pardon me. Right, the hook I'm using is a Camazan B420. It's what we call a sedge type hook. I've already waxed the silk, and I'm going to put on the foundation here of the silk down to the bend, and I'm going to put on the eyes, and I'm going to put on a lead underbody, but not too much lead. But first of all, I want to put on the tail. Now the tails, it's always wise to give a foundation of silk where the tail is going to be. Otherwise it tends to slip around the hook a bit. And the tail is right at the back on the bend here. So I'm giving a bit of a foundation to help me to line up these tails. The tails are biot, goose biots. They're from the trailing edge of the big goose feather. Okay, I've got a couple torn off here, and I will draw your attention to the natural curve that they have. See a slight curve on them? So we put them so that the curve is away from each other, so they give a sort of a spread look. I'll be taking these. That's one. Here's the other. Again, put that on with a bit of a curve, lining up the tips. Now, as I tie this fly, I very often displace these tails because it tends to happen. But later on, I can reposition them and fix them with a bit of varnish. They should be just spread out. Won't worry about them at the moment. Okay, I'll remove these biots, the waste of the two biots. Now I'm going to put on the lead. The lead I use is Uncle Jack's fly tying lead from Vineyards. It's self-adhesive, and you cut a little strip off. I don't put too much lead on our flies in this part of the world. There's a little white backing paper on it, which I tear off. If you're fishing still waters, deep waters, you may want to put more lead than I'm going to put on now. Or if you're fishing a big river. I'm told there are a lot of stoneflies in the Usk. I have fished the Usk a little bit, but not very much. I don't know too much about it. Okay, that's about it. Right, now then, a little bit of, I'll nip that little bit off there because I feel we've got enough. And spread it all down a bit. Right, that's the lead on, and I will now give this lead a bit of a foundation again, sort of wide windings because the windings tend to get tucked down in amongst the folds or the windings of the lead. So give this a bit of a winding. It's just that most flies benefit from a foundation of silk. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to put on are these eyes. Now they're little sort of dumbbell eyes made from nylon, and I'm hoping to be able to show you this provided I don't run out of time. I'm limited time with my camera recording. Can you see these little dumbbell eyes? Okay, put these on here, line them up a bit so that I can get them on with a couple of figures of 8, and I want to make sure I've got the same each side. Just bear with me while I push it through a little bit. That's about it. You see I get these down. They should stay there okay now. Right, back down with the silk towards the bend where I start to tie the fly proper. Right, I'm going to put on a rib. The rib I use is, pardon me, this stretch from Vineyard's Flexi Floss. I'm using a maroon one here because I think it looks pretty good on this fly. It's a big fly and it's a dark fly, and hence the biggish hook that I'm using. Bear with me. I'm trying to show you this without me getting my fingers in the way. Draw that back a little bit. This is the rib going on to there. And now I'm going to put on a sort of a shellback. The shellback is body stretch. It's in an orangey browny colour, which when it's covered over the dubbed body, I think gives a pretty natural looking colour. I've cut a little bit off here to show you, and I've put a sort of pencil point in it. Can you see that? Is that showing up? Okay, now I want to get this on top, the centre of the top, not over to one side, because it's going to come up over the fly like that, over the body. If it's not in the centre, I'd take it off and ensure that it is, but that looks okay. Right, now a little bit of surplus there which I'll cut off of the rib. Now I'm going to dub the body, and I use this ice dub in rust colour. It's almost a maroony rust, and I use that because when it's wet it looks fairly natural colour for this fly. Just take a bit out like this. My silk is waxed. I like this because it's got a sparkle in it, and it does look pretty good in the water. Looks fairly natural. Take my silk back to start the body there, and I wind up to about halfway. Now I want to come a little more than that, not much more. It's just about halfway because the fly in a way is in like 2 parts. Now if you wanted to, you'll notice I'm using a maroon coloured silk, and this is a sort of maroon colour. If you want to, you could give a bit of a rib with the silk to make the body a bit more durable. It's not necessary, not really necessary, but it's just something to show you. Now I'm bringing over this shellback, this stretchy shellback, and I'm bringing it up over the centre of the body, like that. and I'm going to tie it down. Going to secure this. Remove the surplus. Now I'm going to rivet. The rib don't need many ribs because we're only doing sort of half the body. This gives the segmentations that the natural fly has. To about there. And I will secure it. Restrict it a little bit with the camera close to me on a tripod. Right at this stage, I just put on a hackle, and I'm going. These are for the legs, and this is a partridge hackle dyed yellow. Now if you heard me say always tie, it's a body hackle, always tie it in by the tip, but because I've taken so much rubbish off this, I'm now on a thin part of the stalk, so I can tie it in by the stalk. You may say, well, why bother? Well, when you wind a hackle, if you wind it by tying it in by the stalk, it opens out more than if you wind it by the tip. It's not a real problem because you can, you'll see how this is opening out. It's not a real problem because you can just spread them afterwards, and it's quite common practice to do it by the tip. So don't worry too much about me saying that. I'm just trying to secure the tip of this. Now I've only given one wind of this hackle because I don't want too much. They're just legs that are going to be in the center of the fly. They're not going to be on top, and they don't really need to be underneath. There's the tip out. Sometimes I get too many underneath and I clip them a bit. But so what I do now, I'm going to try to part these 50-50 each side and give a little bit of a wind to sort of get them into that position. That's about it. That should be okay. Just have a look. Yeah, that's okay. Now I'm going to put on what I call a shellback. I'm sorry, it's not the shellback. These are going to be wing buds. And for the wing buds, again, I use a body stretch material in brown. Now this one is a bit wider, so I just cut it lengthways to give me the size I want. And you will see I've put a little pencil point on this as well to help me to tie it in. So I position this over here like this. Went over a bit too far then, because I want to keep this on top of the hook, the same as the shellback. Right, that's that on there. I want to get it a bit farther back than that because I want to do the wing buds well over the body. Right, let me try again. Tie this down, draw back the hackles. What's that down? Making sure I don't trap too many hackles or draw them right through this side. Okay, that's a wing bud on. Nice and tight. And what I do now is I give it a fold like this. Just like that. Do you see how that's gone back? And I tie down. Nope, didn't work then. my silk a bit further back here. Right. You see that fold? That's what I'm trying to achieve, a sort of even fold. A bit like that. Okay. That's one fold, one of the wing buds. Now I'm going to do another. Bring the silk up. Some of my friends put 3 folds on, but I only do 2. I've not found it affects the fly in any way. There's 2 wing buds on there. I call them wing buds because they turn out, that's where the wings come from. Okay, now we're at that stage. I'm just going to put a pinch of dubbing, and it is a pinch, hardly any. And now I'm going to put on some front legs. For the front legs I use an ordinary cock hackle. Don't want them too long. Let's have a look. Yeah, they should be okay. Looks about right. It goes on like that. I'm not doubling the stalk back because I'm able to give a pretty good number of winds on it. Right, just tie this. Don't want too many of these legs again. I want to get that off now. Okay. Draw these back a bit. Tie them down. Right. Again, these are going to be split in a moment to give me legs each side. So I'll just try to do that now before I form the head. Make sure I've got equal amount. The problem is when you keep winding over like this, you can easily push all the hackles over to one side. They can be drawn back like this, and it's best to do that as you're tying the fly. Let me just see how that's looking. Just bear with me. Yeah, that looks okay. 1 or 2 stray ones, but they won't matter. Now I'm going to form the head. A little bit of dubbing again. Not very much. You can see I've got a couple of stray hackles, but I will probably remove them later. Right, I'm going to form the head. I wind behind the eyes, then a bit in front of the eyes, and a bit behind again. At this stage, I'm going to nip off these hackles that are not needed. See the head there? My silk now comes to the front, and I bring over this stretch skin, give it a bit of a pull, and tie it down like this. I bring my silk back up underneath, and I bring the skin back over. Tie down again. This is where I finish off the fly. After this, I'm just going to do the whip finish. After this whip finish, I just need to apply varnish to the tie-ins. I'm finishing behind the eyes, behind the head, if you like, of the fly. Okay, that's enough. It'll just be varnish here at this point, and varnish if it's needed to position the tails. Okay, and now I just cut off this surplus bit of nymph skin, just like that. Don't need to cut it too tight because it's it may look like a third wing bud. Okay, let me just have a quick look at these hackles here. Yeah, they're giving me some nice legs. That's good. Right, I'm now going to put on the varnish as I said. Spread these tails a teeny bit. Here we go with the varnish. Try to position the fly so you can see what's happening here. Bit of varnish on my dubbing needle. I wipe it on the back, on these windings here, on the back of the head. And then a little bit underneath. Got a little bit of surplus. You can tie this fly in other colours and it comes out well using seal's fur. Now I'm going to position these tails. I just draw them apart a bit like this and put a blob of varnish just in, we'll call them the roots of the tail. That'll fix them in that position, hopefully. I'm bashing on a bit because I want to try to show you how I make the eyes. Right, now then, if I lower the fly, can you see the eyes there? And you see the tail, and how realistic, in my opinion, that body looks. Now, as I say, sometimes I cut off some of the hackles underneath because they're not, they are surplus to requirements. Okay, I'm going to remove this. Just bear with me while I get ready to show you these eyes. First of all, my old conger reel. 30-pound nylon line in there, and I've snipped a little bit off. And I think this will look better with a darker background. So I'm going to put my dark handkerchief here, hoping that you can see it a bit better. Now, I cut a piece of nylon off. It's there. And I position it in my pliers. Now, these are bent pliers, but they don't have to be. You can use any pliers or tweezer. And I'm sort of getting it halfway there. Now I've got one of these lighter things, which I hope lights because it is a bit temperamental. Okay, watch, I'm going to syringe each side. See that? And now this side. And those are my little dumbbell eyes. Do you see them there? Now I do feel like saying, don't try this at home. And if any of you youngsters watching this want to, if you start playing around with a bit of a flame at home or you fly tying, you know, for goodness sake, get some supervision because I don't want any accidents and fire can be dangerous. Get an adult to watch over you. Okay, that's it. Back to the fly briefly. Here it is, giving you another view of it. Very realistic, big fly, size 8 on a sedge hook, and it is a good fly for rocky rivers and streams. Okay, hope you enjoyed that, and I thank you for watching.